Good morning. Today's video is going to have far-reaching implications and applications as well. Um, yeah, let me jump in and then I can talk more. Court. Who changed? Me or the judge? Yes, I was in court again yesterday, a day that began with a disappointment. My friend that has been with me each time I've gone called early to tell me that he would not be able to join me due to the weather. That triggered my monkey mind that had been fairly quiet, but spirit allayed my fears. This time the judge actually seemed to treat me with respect. Listen today as I share what happened, as well as insights that followed my experience, including today's meditation. It's simply amazing. I've been awake for a long time already this morning and at the computer an hour, just a little bit over an hour prior to starting my video. And I was, as I went out to get my morning drink of water, something said to go into the atrium. Now it was a little damp this morning because it rained most of the day here yesterday, or a significant amount yesterday. And so it's not completely dried out in there, and I got a few drips on me, dripping down from the screened roof area. But anyway, it was a quiet morning and an insightful morning, and it was an insightful day yesterday. As I said in the little blurb, I got a call. Actually, I think he probably called me before 6 o'clock, or it might have been just slightly after 6 o'clock in the morning, to let me know that the rain was horizontal and he has a window that he has trouble closing all the way. The mechanism and the door that operates the window is not functioning properly, and he doesn't have an umbrella. And he said there's just no way that he could go out in the rain and that thing, and he felt that I would be okay. But as I said again in the blurb, my monkey mind starts working now. The previous night, of course, I had slept pretty well. I was not anxious or fearful at all about the court thing. But Jack was going with me, and I felt I was going to be fine. But now Jack wasn't going to be there. I was going to be there on my own. And as I was driving up to the courthouse, Spirit said, "It's okay. It's all okay." And I allayed my fears. And when I got to the courthouse, I was, I think, the third person there. The doors weren't unlocked yet. And I chatted with the other two people that were waiting outside, and then others began to show up. But when we finally went in, I was one of the first ones to enter the court. And when the state attorney asked if anybody was there on a driver's license issue and had obtained their driver's license, to please bring them up, and I was first in line to give her my driver's license with all of my rights reserved. And then I went back and I sat down, and when the judge finally came in and we were called up, I was actually first in line. I was the first one to go, except I didn't go first because another glitch was thrown in. The state attorney that is actually handling my situation, my particular cases, because there's two cases on two charges, the resisting arrest without violence and, of course, the driving without a license. Anyway, he wasn't there, and shortly before court was ready to begin, I went up and I asked her, I said, well, actually, it wasn't then. Yes, it was then. I did go up and I asked her, is David going to be here, Mr. Feinswag? And she says, he didn't show up today. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, and I don't know how he wanted to handle your case, but I'll give him a call. Well, she went out of the courtroom and made a call, and then, of course, she came back in, and she left a message. She only got his voicemail. And anyway, when we went up, I was in the seat right next to the state attorney's prosecutor's table, which means that's the first one to go. And the judge said, "Are we ready to take care of Mr. Van Dyke?" And she said, "Well, we've tried to get Mr. Feinswag, and he has not responded yet." And so the judge says, "Well, we can take the next person then." And he took the next couple, and then he checked it. We ready to go with Mr. Van Dyke yet? And she said, "Well, I don't know. I'm still waiting on an answer from Mr. Feinswag." So he took a few more people. I don't remember exactly how many people went ahead of me. Maybe 5 or 6 or 7. I'm not exactly sure. There were a number of people that got to go first, even though I was first in line, because she was waiting for the call back from the person who's handling my situation. And the judge finally told her to get creative and do whatever you feel is right, regardless of what Mr. Feinswag was going to do. But when I went up there and actually stood before the judge, he didn't even, it was light. I mean, I want to tell you, it was light. And his whole demeanor, even with the other people that went before me, was very joking, very light, very respectful. It was an amazing thing to watch, because this is the same judge that was so arrogant and nasty the first time I appeared before him. But anyway, the state was willing to reduce the charges, to put lower charges, to reduce it from a criminal offense, driving without a license for more than 6 months, to a lesser charge, reduce the penalty, but still, of course, pay a fine, and attend some classes and do community service. I mean, I do community service every week. That is more than what they expect. I mean, I think it was 25 hours community service. I do that every single week. But anyway, that's beside the point. The the judge asked me. I turned and I looked at the judge after she said what the deal was. I turned to the judge, and he said, "She wasn't talking to me. She was talking to you." And I turned back and I looked at her and I said, "Your Honor, with all due respect, I choose to exercise my right to a trial by jury." And the judge said, "Do you have any idea what all is involved in a trial by jury? Have you ever observed, other than on television, have you ever observed a trial by jury?" And I said, "No, I actually haven't." And he says, "Well, will you be getting an attorney, or will you be wanting a state, what do you call it, public defender appointed?" And I said, I'd really rather handle it myself." And he says, "Well, I really think that you should be watching or looking at some of the court. You should come to court and familiarize yourself with what goes on in these trials." And the public defender, who was sitting on my left side behind me, piped in, "You can even watch them on YouTube." And I made the comment, "I do YouTube videos every day." And the judge said, "Are any of them viral?" And I said, "No, but I do have hundreds of people that watch me every day, and sometimes thousands." Anyway, he finally said, "Well, you are pretty articulate, and you obviously have a lot of gray matter between your ears," which I took that as a compliment. In other words, he's saying, "You're pretty intelligent. I guess you can handle it. I'm going to put it down as pro se." and you need to come back for a docket sounding on September 19th prior to the trial, but we can have a trial by jury. And he said, when you sign the papers, you're free to go. So all of my fears that were starting to do the monkey mind thing of I don't have anybody there to witness or to be the observer. What happens if he gets really mad at me and throws me in jail for contempt of court because I don't do whatever it is he wants me to do, like he threatened the first time I stood before him? But that's not, of course, what happened. I just explained to you what did happen. And as I'm in the meditation this morning, another factor came to me that I hadn't even realized until this morning in meditation. This is the third time I stood before that judge. And the first time, there were at least three, and possibly four bailiffs in the room, armed bailiffs. The last time I stood before the judge, there were only two bailiffs in the room. This time, there was only one. Why? The first time I went into the courtroom, I had the attitude of fighting them, because I was perceiving the whole scenario as adversarial. But something happened in the second time that I appeared, when the state prosecutor came back, and I actually had two discussions with him prior to the proceedings beginning in court that day. And then when I stood before the judge, the state prosecutor basically took over the conversation, saying that he'd like to put the two cases together and bring them together on the date yesterday, the 27th. And that's what happened, and it allayed more of my fears then, because I knew that the state prosecutor was on my side. Do you hear what I just said? Now, obviously, he's in the opposite role from me. He's the prosecutor. I'm the defendant as the court sees it. Now, of course, I did file counterclaims in which I was the counter plaintiff and the state was the counter defendant. In any case, yesterday, without the state that state prosecutor present, and the lady handling it, who was not the one that was completely familiar with my case, it took me aback a little bit, and I failed to do something that I should have done, and didn't realize it till I was driving away from the court, and that is I should have motioned for dismissal prior to saying that I wanted to exercise my right to a trial by jury. I realized it didn't register till after the fact. So it's all good, because I'm going to be contacting the state prosecutor before the next hearing and seeing if they want to dismiss the charges, because there's no way that you put me before a jury with my gift and my evidence. My evidence. They can't win. There's no way. There's no way they can win. And I want to say that something else has changed in me over the past period of a couple of months since I first stood before that judge and first started handling these issues. I was going into it in an adversarial role, and I was seeing them as basically monsters. But Spirit began to do a work in me to soften the way that I perceived them, and to see their humanity, to let my higher self commune with their higher self, and see them, instead of as the beast, see them as human beings, just like me, as children of God, just as I am. And I want to tell you something, folks. When you begin to perceive other people as yourself, or like yourself, something happens to you that seems to have a tremendous effect on them. It's a dynamic that spiritual people have been telling us about for a long time, and it's so hard for us to get it. Because the courts are crooked. The government is crooked. This is true. But is it crooked? Are they crooked? Because that's what our perception is? Because that's what we expect them to be? Because we have lived constantly in conflict in our world and in our lives, that we have to create adversarial roles? These are some of the things that I'm pondering and pondered in the meditation this morning before I came to the computer. And it's really, really amazing to me that I still understand the dynamics in our world. I still understand that, and I still feel the fear that's present, knowing how they've abused their power when we, the people, have abdicated our sovereignty and stepped out of our own power into a position of weakness and subservience to authority figures, because we refuse to take responsibility or authority for our own lives. Anyway, these are my observations and my feelings this morning as I share with you. And I really invite you to listen carefully to what I've shared, and listen with your heart even more than your head. Because we can change the world if we allow ourselves to change and allow our perception of apparent enemies to change. I've watched it in action as the judge yesterday showed me respect, obvious respect. And I think the change came in me first and enabled him to move into a better part of his being. And it's all good. Thank you for listening. Namaste.